I had no idea the British press was so bigoted.
This one's wife, the jelly wobble. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Perhaps one of the most controversial aspects about this one's wife relates to the issues surrounding her children and pregnancy. We rarely see anything of Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. There have been limited pieces of footage and photographs that have been released in the past. Supporters of this one's wife maintain that this is the right thing to do to protect them from the glare of publicity. After all, the way that Harry says he found the publicity was particularly traumatic, and therefore this one's wife and Harry are being good parents, shielding their children from the worst excesses of media intrusion. Detractors suggest the children are hidden because either they don't exist in the first place, or if they do, then this one's wife primarily is hiding them because there's something either wrong with them, or that she doesn't want them taking the limelight away from her, or because she is not naturally maternal, her inability to be a decent mother would shine through, particularly now that they are older, and that, of course, would amount to a huge threat to her control. There are those that maintain the children simply do not exist. There are others who say that there are some children, but they're actually other people's children that are brought in to operate the pretense of being Prince Archie or Princess Lilibet. There are others that maintain the children do exist and stop making such a fuss. There are others that accept that the children exist, but don't believe that this one's wife was actually pregnant and that the children came from a surrogate. As I've explained elsewhere, ordinarily that wouldn't really be such an issue. Surrogacy is largely accepted these days, and in certain instances people understand full well why a surrogate would be used. I have, of course, explained that for a narcissist, this would be seen as problematic because it would affect the idea of fertility and superiority, thus being a threat to control. And, of course, in this instance, it has an added aspect with regard to their inclusion in the line of succession, which is important to this one's wife because it's status which she can acquire by way of character trait acquisition. Accordingly, there are those that suggest that the children were born from surrogates, but of course that has to be kept quiet in order to keep them within the line of succession, and therefore this one's wife faked her pregnancies. There's plenty of material, both in terms of pictures and footage, that suggest that she used a moon bump to simulate being pregnant when she actually was not. And you can find various videos throughout the internet discussing this particular point. But I've picked one piece of footage that many of you will be familiar with, because I want to use it not so much to talk about necessarily the issue of whether she was pregnant or not. I'll leave that to make your mind up about it. But what the mindset of this one's wife is in relation to what looks in this footage like the fact that it is a fake belly, because it's wobbling like jelly on a plate. Let's have a look first of all at the footage. Here it comes. Now, first of all, in the interests of balance, there are those that suggest that this is a piece of manipulated footage. Yeah. That they suggest that somebody has taken the time to take this piece of footage showing this one's wife as she strolls across the street, and that they've somehow changed it to make her belly sway from side to side. You, as always, can make your own minds up about the legitimacy and veracity of this evidence. Do you think it's manipulated, in which case there's nothing to see here? Or do you believe that it's not, and this is accurate footage showing her stomach rather unnaturally swaying from side to side? I'll leave you to make your own minds up about that. But on the basis that this is legitimate footage, many people have commented that it is entirely unnatural for a pregnant woman's stomach to move in that way, that ordinarily it would be fixed, and that it's swaying as a consequence of the motion because it's not actually part of her. It's affixed to her, i.e. she's using a moon bump. The fact that it is swaying does appear to be unnatural, and there's lots of people who've explained that when they were pregnant, that certainly would not happen. And therefore, the evidence tends to suggest that if this is legitimate footage, then it does show somebody with an unnatural movement, and you get the jelly wobble. But the point is this. This one's wife walks across that street. She's there grinning away, rictus grin, giving a wave, and she appears oblivious to what is going on. The fact is, her narcissism tells her that what she's doing is entirely natural. It doesn't cause her to think, oh shit, my stomach's wobbling, that's going to look unusual. I've got a problem here. Take, for example, you are walking along and you suddenly realise, if you're a gent, that feels a bit breezy down below. Oh, I've not done up my flies. You might have a moment of embarrassment, or you would react and go, whoops, and zip up. Or ladies, you're wearing a skirt and you suddenly realise that it feels a bit drafty round the back, and oh goodness me, I've tucked my skirt into my knickers. Therefore, you adjust yourself, and you might feel a little bit embarrassed, or you might not feel embarrassed, but you think, oh, that's not right. That doesn't look correct. I'm going to adjust it. You have an awareness that your presentation isn't quite how you want it to be. Either because, for instance, you can feel a draft where you don't want there to be a draft, or that you recognise that showing off your bum or your private parts isn't appropriate when you're walking along the street, so you make an adjustment. The point is this. You have an awareness of what you want to present to the world as being proper, and whether it's your flies being undone or your skirt being tucked into your underwear, does not accord with what you deem to be appropriate to show the world. So you react and adjust. Your reaction might just be one of, oh, well, that needed to be sorted out, or you might glow bright red and feel silly. Notice with this one's wife, there's no embarrassment. There's no adjustment. She doesn't suddenly hold her stomach. We've seen previously where she would regularly accentuate her stomach, drawing attention to it by putting one hand above it and one hand below it to show, look, I'm pregnant. That she would often flap open her coat to say, look at my bump, essentially triangulating people with it. Here, she doesn't seek to arrest the movement. She doesn't put her hands either side of it to try and stop it. There isn't a reaction of, oh shit, my stomach's wobbling, it's not meant to do that. Oh no, I need to do something. In the same way as I've just explained somebody zipping up their flies or adjusting their skirt. The point is this, she doesn't see anything wrong with what she's doing because her narcissism tells her that this is natural. That she doesn't deem that the swaying of her stomach is inappropriate and suggests that actually she may not be pregnant and is wearing a moon bump. Her narcissism just says, carry on. She's oblivious. And this is very interesting because it once again demonstrates how her narcissism only takes her so far with regard to fitting in. As I've explained to you on many previous occasions, superior narcissists that have a greater evolved narcissism are much better at fitting in, that they're able to mask their idiosyncrasies, if you will, so that they don't stand out. This one's wife struggles with that. The clenching jaw, the grip of doom, the death stare, the fluttering eyelids, etc. And here, her narcissism tells her a swaying stomach when you're pregnant is entirely appropriate, whereas many people commenting point out, no, it's not, that shouldn't happen. And it's an interesting aspect of her narcissism that shows this is what she thinks is natural when you're pregnant, because her narcissism tells her that. So think, for example, of an alien that comes to this planet, and the alien thinks it's appropriate on greeting somebody to put a tentacle to your head and start to read your thoughts. That's intrusive. It's a lack of boundary recognition. But the alien doesn't understand the cultural way of interacting with people on planet Earth, and does that because it doesn't understand that that's ordinarily deemed as rude, intrusive, and inappropriate. Over time, it's explained you shouldn't do that. That's not the way that you greet people. And the alien learns that you greet with a shake of the tentacle rather than trying to read somebody's thoughts. This one's wife is similar. She is, in effect, like an alien that has to learn certain behaviors to fit in around her. And her narcissism, because of the type of narcissism it is, isn't always that good at doing so. In many instances, it does. It gets it right. But here, it doesn't. And it's another instance of how her narcissism causes her to behave in an incongruous way. But she doesn't recognize that it is incongruous because she's completely oblivious, because the narcissism tells her this is fine, when in actual fact, it's causing her a problem. Because lots of people now point out, on the basis that this is legitimate footage, your stomach's swaying like that, it ought not to do that when you're pregnant. Therefore, you're not pregnant. Therefore, it's a moon bump. It's an excellent example using some historic footage to demonstrate another aspect of her narcissism. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching.